In this video, I'm going to show you how you can travel to Niseko, Japan. Niseko is Japan's most famous ski resort located in the northern Hokkaido island. And I will specifically tell you how you can travel there independently and on a budget, which I just did. Most people who go to Japan go in the spring, the summer, or the autumn periods to enjoy the cherry blossoms, nice summer vacation, beaches, nature, and then they usually stay in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. For those who come during winter season, they're really rewarded because it's less busy, prices are lower, there's a magical, kind of comfortable, cozy feeling around Japan. It is cold, but there's a lot of things that make it warm, like the onsens, the warm ramen, and yeah, a lot of different cafes you can go into. Plus, those who want to experience the winter sports are really spoiled. There's a lot of variation in the terrain in Japan, especially there's a lot of mountains, and then they're in this unique geographical location where they're east of Siberia, so they get all that weather, but it comes across the Sea of Japan and then dumps as powder, especially the further north you go. So it's really good conditions, especially if you like powdery light skiing. Okay, let's get into it. So the details. Where is Niseko? Niseko is located on the northernmost island of Hokkaido, Japan, and it's in the kind of southwestern part of the island near the city of Sapporo. Sapporo also has a really big international and domestic airport, so it's easy to get there from either abroad or from Tokyo. I think the flight from Tokyo to Sapporo is like one of the busiest flight routes in the entire world. So there's a lot of choice in terms of airlines and departure times and everything like that. So it's pretty easy to get from Tokyo to Sapporo by flight. You can also fly from China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Southeast Asia, Korea, into Sapporo also. Alternatively, if you want to take the scenic route, you can also travel by bullet train. It takes about 8 hours though to get from Tokyo to Niseko, and that's on the fastest one, which is not covered by the Japan Rail Pass if you have that. So I would suggest flying, but traveling by bullet train is a very comfortable, amazing, scenic, efficient, and fast solution too. It does cost a lot though too. So you go from Tokyo or wherever to Shin Hakodate, and then you would take a local train from there to Niseko. If you're in Sapporo or at the Sapporo airport, there's basically two options. One, you can take a bus directly to Niseko. So there's a couple companies that run this shuttle. One is Chuo buses. That's probably the biggest with the most departures. And then there's also NDS, Niseko Direct Shuttle. They go directly to the airport. So yeah, it's really convenient and it takes 3 hours and it's usually 5,000 to 6,000 yen. Word of advice from someone who didn't follow this advice: one, book your shuttle in advance online as soon as you know your travel plan. So it's going to get booked out in advance, especially the weekends or the early morning departures. So just do that as soon as you know. Then the second piece of advice is sit on the north side if you can. The views of going to Niseko are stunning. You pass a lake, you pass a view of Mount Yote, which is basically a Mount Fuji that no one knows about. The big advantage of the bus is it directly drops you at your resort. So it drops at the Hirafu Welcome Center where most people stay in Hirafu, and then also at the Hilton Niseko Village, which is a big ski resort. You can also take the train. It's a limited express train from Sapporo Airport to Sapporo, so that's about 2,000 yen. Then there's another leg from Sapporo to Otaru, which is also 2,000 yen about. And then there's another local train from Otaru to Kuchan, which is another 2,000 about. So about 6,000 in total and takes about 3 or 4 hours. Go to the station early, buy a ticket at the ticket machine because Suica card is not accepted. You also have to get a supplement because the trains are limited express and not just the regular trains. Okay, then once you get to Kuchan, this is the main transport hub in the region, and then you can take local bus or train to your accommodation. So where should you stay? The options of accommodation are vast. There's a lot of supply, from hostels to little guest houses to lodges to chalets to hotels. I'm going to go through the budget accommodations, and probably what you want to think about is location. So I would say the main buzzing part of the resort area is Hirafu. So if you can stay as close to Hirafu as you can, that's the best. Then if you want a more cheap, more laid back option away from the mountain, you stay in Kuchan. You can stay in the other places, but they're a little bit harder to access. So I would say Hirafu is your best bet. It has all the nightlife, it has the restaurants, it has the proximity to the biggest ski resort in the area. All the ski resorts and the accommodation areas pretty much are connected by public transport, aka bus, so don't worry about that. If you have your own car, obviously it's easier. I stayed in a place near Hirafu called My Eco Lodge, which was great. It was dorm accommodation. They also have private rooms you can rent out. I really recommend this place. I stayed a full 8 nights here and thought the facilities were good. The location was good, right across the street from 7-Eleven. Access to the mountain was really close, within 10 minutes. They have a free shuttle. They have free breakfast. They had ski storage. They had a good restaurant for dinner with ramen and other Japanese foods. They had vending machines. They had a laundry machine. There was a really nice communal space for eating, working, drinking, socializing, and it was pretty social. Yeah, I'd say it's 50% Australians and then 50% everyone else, Americans, Canadians, Asians, and Europeans. Niseko is heavily dominated by Australians, particularly young Australians in the 18 to 25-year-old range, so that has its advantages. It's fun, but it also has its disadvantages, like you wake up one morning and there's vomit in the urinal bathroom and no one's cleaned it up. So now that we're off to that great start to the day, let's talk about the ski area itself. So Niseko is actually Niseko United, which is the same mountain, but there's 4 different areas on it. You can buy a ticket individually for each of the areas, or you can buy a all-inclusive ticket. One exciting piece of news is also Niseko accepts the Icon Pass, so Icon Pass holders can ski here. So now let's talk about gear and equipment. So I have my own ski clothes, but not my own gear. I always rent that. The idea of lugging my equipment all the way across the Pacific Ocean or the Eurasian continent is just too daunting. So yeah, you have several options. One, your hotel probably has a rental place in it. That's probably expensive. You can go in town. There's a lot of rental shops that rent gear, and the most popular being Rhythm. That's probably the most premium place, but probably the best gear. I went to this boutique place next to my place called Good Sports and paid $4,000 per day, which is a pretty good deal, I think. So I like them. I recommend them. I'm going to go through each of the 4 ski areas in the Niseko United Zone and explain about each one, giving information and also my views. So a lot of this is my opinion, just so you know. I'm going to go from east to west. So Hanazono, Grand Hirafu, Niseko Village, and then Annupuri. So starting with Hanazono, that is the one furthest in the east of the Niseko United area, and it seems like the most new and the most modern and the most foreign. I would say it's like 90% foreigners, and the demographics is definitely more upscale. They have the most expensive restaurant. They have the nicest gondolas and lifts by far with heated seats and Wi-Fi. You almost feel like you're in Whistler, like everyone's foreign, either from the Americas or Australia, and it's the most expensive one, and you really don't feel like you're in Japan. You could be anywhere in North America. It is a little bit further away, but it's quite accessible. They have a free shuttle bus that's every 20 minutes running from there to the other resorts and back. And then also the Hyatt is there. They have a nightly fireworks, which is kind of cool. They also have night skiing and everything, but there's no onsen nearby. There's a lot of parking. The snow is incredible. On a nice day, you can have a pretty good view, but not of the main mountain, Mount Yote, which I liked about Hirafu. But the runs are good, well groomed. They have backcountry also, and you can go to the very top. You can also climb to Hirafu Ski Resort from there too. I really did not like the lounge area. It's incredibly crowded. I couldn't even get a space anywhere from 11 to 2. And they have this après ski area outside, but no one was really hanging out there. It's really bad for being able to relax, if you want to relax while your companions are skiing. Also, I thought the prices were extremely high for the food. Probably the worst part was the busyness and the lines. Like, even though they had a lot of space in the gondola, like one is like 10 or 8 to 10 people, the lines were still really long for all the lifts. So I don't know, it just took a long time to get a lot of ski runs in. Next ski resort is Grand Hirafu. So this is the most central of the ski resorts, and it's the biggest as well, and the busiest, as you can see by this line. So this is right at Grand Hirafu town. It's like steps away from the Grand Hirafu Welcome Center, which is kind of the center of like all the bus activity, and all transport goes through there from the airport to Sapporo to the local buses. So it's really convenient, and also it's centrally located in the mountain, so you can get to all the other ski resorts using the lift up to the top from Grand Hirafu. It's overwhelmingly foreigners. There's hardly any Japanese people at this resort, or maybe there are, but they just get drowned out by so many foreign tourists. So yeah, there's a lot of foreigners. The snow is great, the skiing is varied, and there's a lot of variety, and you can still get off-piste like this, going through the trees and stuff, so no worries about the crowds. Like at the lifts, they won't really bother you when you're on the actual runs. I found this resort to have the best pricing scheme and variation and options. So you can get a full day pass, you can get a full mountain day pass, which is 9,500. You can get a half day pass, you can get an afternoon pass, you can get a night skiing pass, and then you can also just pay per ride. And here's me falling in the very thick snow. It was snowing every day when I went there, so it was like dumping all the time, which is great if you like powder. Grand Hirafu probably had the best food. It was like maybe 1.5 to 2 times what you'd pay in a normal Japanese town, but you're skiing, so that's fine. And they had like ramen, they had all the Japanese foods. They also had Hokkaido seafood, so like you could get a bowl with roe and like tuna and salmon on top, which was delicious. And you're at Hirafu Town. Hirafu Town is the center of the whole ski area. So all the bars, restaurants, and retail is like concentrated in that area. So I would suggest going out at night to eat or to drink or to go to the bars. You definitely want to go to Hirafu, and it's very convenient because all the buses go there, and there's also a late night bus that runs until like midnight, so it's very convenient if you want to go out there. Yeah, there are a lot of restaurants and bars. I went to this restaurant called Genghis Khan, which is a grill at your table meat restaurant, all you can eat, for I think 4,000. So pretty good. You can also get an all you can drink option, standard. Yeah, and then the bars, there's a lot of bars. They are all Australian only. So if that's your thing, great. If it's not, then you're kind of out of luck. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. It You really don't feel like you're in Japan when you're in Hirafu Town. And this is them pre-gaming shirtless in the snow. The only public onsen close by Hirafu Town is Prince Hotel, which is right in the main part of town, but it's also 3,000, which is basically twice as much as any other onsen. Moving west from Hirafu is the ski resort of Niseko Village. This one is a big resort centered around the Hilton Hotel, which is this ugly cylindrical building. The good thing is it's not as busy as Hirafu, and it's pretty central too. You can go to the top and ski all the way to Hirafu or Hanazono or Annupuri from here. I would say the best part about this one is if you like really difficult runs and tree runs and that kind of thing, you can easily access it here. They have even a triple black diamond, which I had to go on. It's called G11, and the day I went, it was rated as hell on a scale from hell to heaven. And they have a very detailed map of like all the ski area. If you go out of bounds, you forfeit your ski ticket, and then if you go off this one rock, you will die, it says. And also, they're very clear that if you have to get medically evacuated, then it costs minimum 50,000 Japanese yen. I actually really liked this run. You have to hike a little bit to get to it, but once you're there, you really feel like you're off piste. There's hardly any people. You have the whole kind of area to yourself, and then you just kind of make your way through the trees, through the flat areas, through the steep areas, and then like, yeah, you really feel like you're off piste for real. The lifts are all pretty good. They have a really good gondola. I took that basically every time because it drops you really far up the mountain, and then you can go on pretty steep runs. The other good thing is you get really good views of Mount Yote if it's a clear day. Not as good as Hirafu. That has the best views, actually, Grand Hirafu. But it's also, I mean, you can't beat these views either. And the face of it, you're like kind of, the Hilton is the only thing around, so you're like, great, a really expensive resort hotel. But actually, they have this really cool Niseko Village right next to it with all these little shops and restaurants. It's pretty cool. You can even like ski right into the village and just like ruck right up to your restaurant. I liked the village because it had like traditional Japanese architecture, and then it felt like a little, like a little old town feeling. There were a lot of options on the food. There was like a katsu place, ramen place. There's a crab restaurant, and then there's a lot of Chinese hot pot, which is like really weird. There's Chinese hot pot like everywhere. I guess there's a lot of Chinese that like hot pot in Niseko. Yeah, but the village is really nice, so take advantage of that. About the opening hours of the resorts. So the ski lifts open usually from 8:30 and close at 7 p.m. Not all of them close at 7 p.m. though. Some close at 3:30, some close at 4. So just make sure you know the run you're on and when the last lift is. So the sun sets around 5 p.m. this far up north in Hokkaido. So the period from 5 to 7 is night skiing. And within the full day ticket, you get the night skiing included. So you can really ski from 8:30 to 7 if you really wanted to. Not all the runs are obviously illuminated and not all the lifts are running, but most of them with the good grooming are. And there's also trees around, so you can veer off if you want and still see what you're doing. The good thing about this is there's no congestion. It's like the beginner skiers have kind of like gone in for the day, but it's a lot of expert skiers, like a lot of Australians who work at the lift shops or the ski shops and stuff. They get there 2 hours after 5 p.m. to go skiing, and so they get out all their crazy pent up ski anxiety on these 2 hours. So the runs can be a little bit treacherous with a lot of fast, um, daring skiers, I would say. But it's really good because it's illuminated, so you can see like every bump in the road, and so it makes it a lot easier. Sometimes it's hard to see during the day because of all the clouds and like heavy snow. So I thought, like, yeah, I really like night skiing. It was almost sometimes better than the day skiing. Then we get to the furthest west resort in the Niseko United area, which is Annupuri. Annupuri is like the oldest one, and it's my personal favorite. I'll show you why. So it takes an hour to get there from like Hirafu area, so you kind of have the first seat on the bus, and then people get on as the day goes on. What's good about it is actually further away, so it's harder to access. So either you have your own car or it takes like an hour. So people are like, oh, I'll just go to Hirafu instead. So there's basically like hardly any tourists here compared to the other ones. The ratio is probably like 50-50 Japanese to non-Japanese. There are a lot of groups of ski lesson kids, so during the middle of the day, so just be warned about that. But I mean, they're kind of predictable. They're like, it's busy from 10 to 12, and then they all take lunch, and then they go for another 2 hours from 1 to 3, and then they're done. Yeah, look at these lines. So there's a gondola that goes all the way to the top, but you have to hike to the very peak, which is what these people are doing here. And then there's also a quad that go to pretty steep locations, so you can get pretty varied terrain. So you can get up the mountain quickly, and then you can also do a lot of runs. So it's really nice. And there's not a lot of lines, especially for the gondola. There's also a singles line where you basically cut the whole the whole group line. So I use that a lot of times as a single skier. The next reason Annupuri was my favorite out of the four resorts is because of the pricing and the tickets. So they have the most variation, and it's also the cheapest if you only stay in Annupuri. So you can buy the full mountain pass for 10,500, same as the others, and use all the four mountains. But then also you can go for a 1 day pass, and that's only 7,000 compared to 9,500 for the other ones. There's also 5 hour for 6,000. They have night skiing only for 3,300. And then this is my ultimate favorite. I don't know how this is not more publicized. So they have for 6,500, you can get a 5 hour ski pass for Annupuri. It also includes a 1,000 yen voucher to get food at the restaurant, and then also gets 200 yen off a onsen nearby day ticket. It's like, wow, so everything I want is like 5 hours of skiing in Niseko, great powder, great tree skiing, great everything, not a lot of lines, great Japanese food for lunch, and then an onsen for the end of the day. Like, how could you not love that? So the next thing I loved about Annupuri was the food options. So they have a high upscale restaurant, but I never went to that. I went to the like local lodge restaurant where all the kids eat, and it had so many good options. So it has ramen, it has katsu, it has curry, it had this galbi beef bowl, and everything was very reasonably priced, which was the best part. It was like 1,300 to 2,500 only, whereas the other ones start at 2,500. Last but not least, my favorite part of Annupuri and also skiing in Japan is getting to go in the onsen hot spring after your long day of hard work skiing. It's amazing. Yeah, there's several options around Annupuri specifically that are all 1,500 yen. The other ones are like 3,000 yen, so that's also why I liked Annupuri. So there are three right around there that have public onsen that anyone can use for day use. So I liked these. There's something about sitting in the open air with the snow falling on you and having a 41-degree hot bath with geothermal water that is just like so bliss. Yeah, so I did this almost every day after I figured it out. One other thing you can do from Niseko is go to the other surrounding ski resort areas. So there's a lot of different ski resorts actually around in Hokkaido, around Niseko. So they're a quick day trip away. So one possible one, which I did, was Rusutsu. I thought it was really nice. Rusutsu is kind of one resort that you have to stay in, or you can take a day trip. So I just took a day trip, and it was 8,000 yen from Niseko to Rusutsu for a day trip. Leaves at 8 a.m. or 8:30, I forget, and then it takes 45 minutes to get there, and then the bus brings you back at 4 or 4:30 p.m. Back to Niseko. So it's really convenient. You have to buy your own lift ticket there. It's about 9,000. Yeah, for the lift ticket also. There's two different areas of Rusutsu. There's east and west. So the east part is really kind of more skiing based, and the west part is closer to the resort, and it also has the the better food and onsen options. So I of course skied at the east part and then spent the entire afternoon at the onsen. The onsen is really nice. They have these like lay down baths facing the mountain. Yeah, so it's really nice. It's really crowded though, and it costs 1,500 for day use. And there you have it. So I hope this gave you enough inspiration and information to plan your next trip to Niseko. I really recommend it, although there's also a lot of other good ski resorts in Japan. And on that note, I think I'm becoming Australian. I have this mullet and now a mustache. So time for me to leave.